High School Musical 2 is actually a fucking brilliant movie, and I've loved rewatching this because one of my favorite lessons that we learn in this movie is what does it look like to stay true to your values? And how do we hold other people accountable, but also how do we hold ourselves accountable at the end of the day? Sharpay wants to pull Troy away from Gabriella, so what she does is she gets Troy a job at her country club that her family owns. Now, what she wasn't betting on is that Troy was going to use his privilege to get the Wildcats and Gabriella jobs there as well, so her plan might be foiled, or so she thinks. Troy has always been one for the team. He's going to uplift other people. He's not going to take all the credit. He also says, it's not just me. I couldn't have done it without these people. He is very friend-centered. He tries to be the best friend that he could be and uplift other people. And when he stops acting that way, Chad and Gabriella have to call on accountability to Troy, because Troy is kind of being seduced by all the things that Sharpay is offering him, right? The nice shoes, the nice clothes, the promotion, right? A chance to meet with her father, who is on I believe, the board of directors for the University of Albuquerque, right? And also playing with the Red Hawks, who are the team of U of A. And he's getting all these privileges, right? And eventually we see him start losing himself in the process, right? In being seduced by all these things Sharpay is offering, he's not being a good friend. He's not being a good boyfriend. This is when we see Chad and Gabriella in their own ways call upon accountability to Troy, saying like, listen, you are not who I know you to be, right? You are acting differently, and this is not okay. This is not the friend in the Troy that I love and know, and I can't talk to you right now if this is how you're going to act. And Troy gets defensive, but he does eventually, come to a reflection like, damn, like, is it me? Am I the problem? Right? And this is where we get Ben on it, which is actually a fucking brilliant song, right? Like, you can only hold people accountable to a degree, right? It comes to the point where, let's talk about this. This is wrong. This bothered me, right? And if they don't want to talk about it, or they don't want to have some sort of reflection, then all you can do is walk away. But at the end of the day, the only person that can hold you accountable is yourself, right? I'm hearing all, I should do this, I should do that, and I can weigh what everyone else is saying, but I also have to look within. What are my values? Who do I know myself to be? Who do I want to be? And how am I not living up to those values, right? Am I the type of guy who means what I say? I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And that's when Troy realizes, oh shit, right? I gotta make it right. That is the way. We see Troy at the end of the movie reflect and then make it right. And that's what you're supposed to do. That is actually a valuable lesson, right? How do we call on accountability to others? What does that look like? Where does that end, right? Where you have to remove yourself, right? And then accountability within yourself. Am I actually living within my values? Am I the type of guy who means what I say? Not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, right? I don't just say that this is how I want to do things. I actually do things. I'm not just saying this is what I believe. I act in ways that prove this is what I believe. That's why my friends knew, right? Chad and Gabriella knew, you may have had better intentions at the beginning of the summer, but this is not who you're not acting like that now. Like, we can't be friends with you if this is how you're going to act. And he reflects and he makes it right. And that's the whole fucking point. Some people could stand to learn a lesson about that. I want to use this comment to get across something that I learned in my analysis of High School Musical 2. So as we can see, it says, my unpopular opinion is Troy deserved to take his future seriously, be a little selfish. He definitely shouldn't have been rude, but he deserved grace, and his friends were kind of, I forget what it said, I think they were kind of selfish or rude or something. I can't remember what the end of it says. Nevertheless, so there are 2 points that I want to point out about High School Musical 2. One is the point about loyalty. In the way loyalty is called upon Troy. What does loyalty mean to you? That's the question. And in the first movie, loyalty was used selfishly. So Chad called upon this accountability, right, or loyalty to Troy, in that you have to keep the status quo, right? And you're not doing that, and you're challenging our discomfort in keeping the status quo, right? Not just you're a part of the team of the Wildcats, right? In the status quo of the patriarchy, right? Chad makes a lot of misogynistic comments because Chad not only wants to sing, he wants to do musical theater, right? So Chad, in the end, was wrong for calling upon that loyalty to Troy in the first movie. In the second movie, we see loyalty used more authentically. So this would be in the way that, hey, I know who you want to be, right? How you are a loyal friend to us, right? You always uplift other people. And the big thing is we lose this with Troy in the second movie. An interesting scene is when Sharpay pulls Troy out of work to go dine with her family. And the aim of this dinner was like, let me introduce Troy to my dad. My dad works at University of Albuquerque and he's in with the basketball team, obviously, and maybe we can get Troy a scholarship. And they say, Troy, he does it all. He's the best basketball player of it all. And one of the things he says, oh, it's not just me, it's my team. I couldn't have done it without them, right? He's always uplifting his friends in that way. And one of the things that Troy said to his dad after that dinner was that he felt weird that his friends were serving him, right? Because that kind of made the power play here, right? It didn't make them feel equal, and Troy wants everyone to feel equal. Later on, as we see Troy losing himself, this really interesting indicator of Troy losing himself was Troy was having lunch with the Red Hawks, and Corbin Blue's character, Chad, was going to deliver him his hamburger. And they're chatting with the basketball people, and Chad thinks that Troy is going to be like, hey, like, this is my friend Chad, we've been playing basketball, this, and that, right? To kind of uplift him and include him in the privilege. But instead of doing that, Chad gets his hopes up when Troy says, like, hey, and you can see it on his face. But what happens then is Troy says, oh, I actually ordered this on my burger. Can you get this instead? And he was immediately let down. So to me, and I'm not like criticizing your take, because I think that within breaking the status quo, which is the whole point of High School Musical, right, we kind of have to look inward to how are we still upkeeping the status quo, and how are we embracing our friends' growth that are kind of affecting, our actions that may be holding him back and not allowing that, right? And also letting go of, this is the Troy Bolton I knew, and this is how he's evolved, right, to the next Pokemon level, the next chapter of Troy Bolton. And I think that's like where your kind of take is kind of coming from, and I can see what you mean by that, but I want to prove a point here. This whole ordeal with Sharpay offering Troy all of these privileges, right? This isn't something, that is magically falling into his lap because, he's worked so hard for it. It's not to, dismiss what he does do. But in white supremacy, we see people using their power to uplift other people that they want by their side, right? And what does Troy offer Sharpay? He is kind of this like trophy. Troy is like would be a trophy husband to Sharpay, because Sharpay, in her mind, she's the it girl. And what does having the, lead captain on the basketball team mean to Sharpay? Troy has this popularity, right? That it's like, wow, wouldn't they be the best power couple, right? And the thing is, Sharpay is not actually interested, right? She may want to steal Troy from Gabriella. She's not interested in Troy as a person in the way Gabriella is, right? It's what they look like, right? They look like this power couple, but they don't actually care about genuine connection. And that is Sharpay's problem. And interesting, when Sharpay goes to Gabriella, I believe this is right before I Gotta Go My Own Way, and she's kind of bragging like, haha, got Troy, got your boy in the bag. And Gabriella says, you're very good at playing a game that I don't want to play. Because the whole point of High School Musical 2, right, is that Troy, not the whole point, I should say, an interesting factor of High School Musical 2 is using your privilege to uplift people who don't have those advantages, right? So you're thinking about under white supremacy, right? Sharpay and Troy are people who could get and have those privileges. Obviously, Sharpay has technically more privilege than Troy, being that she's incredibly rich, right? Her parents own a country club. But giving the other spots to people who already have privilege doesn't make sense. Troy, in the beginning of the movie, like I said, uses his privilege, right, of Sharpay saying, hey, I want you to work at my country club, right? And he gets the manager to hire the rest of the Wildcats and Gabriella. So that's him using his privilege to help people who don't have the same privilege that he has, right? That's the whole point. We're using our privilege to uplift people who don't have the same privilege that we have. And not only this, right? Once Troy, bet on it happens, he reflects, he realizes, like, wait, this isn't right. And very interesting, wicked High School Musical reference here is what Elphaba sings, I'm through with playing all the rules of someone else's game and bet on it. I don't want to win this game if I can't play it my way. This is the way people are telling me it should be, but I'm not going to do it that way. I need to do what I feel is right. I'm not going to play to these privileges of someone who doesn't even really genuinely care about me. This isn't right. Like, look what it made me. I was so seduced by the idea, it made me lose who I am and forget the kind of guy that I want to be, and I'm going to make it right. He calls into accountability on Sharpay, like, hey, I'm not putting up with your bullshit anymore. I'm dropping out. Sorry, Sharpay, I can't do it. And Ryan, this is actually an interesting movie for Ryan too, because he learns, keeping the status quo and isolating yourself from others actually does harm you, right? And Ryan learns that his proximity to power doesn't actually mean anything, because as soon as Sharpay, wanted Troy, she said, you're booted out of Humanukunukunaapua, and I'm actually going to take Troy to the talent show. And Ryan also calls upon the same accountability to his sister, like, hey girl, I'm not just going to hop into this talent show with you just because Troy said I'm not singing with you, right? And he even gets Troy to sing a different song so he would then sing with Gabriella at the talent show. My point is, proximity to power does not guarantee you a seat at the top, because at the end of the day, you're not safe. And Ryan learns this, and Troy learns this, that this is not the right way to play. And like I said, I do completely understand with the way that we have to embrace our friends' growth, and they didn't quite do that, but I just don't think the point of that was in this movie. I do want to say High School Musical 3, though, a great example of that. Sam pointed out actually an incredible thing, and I wanted to just connect this for anyone who cares to listen about how the status quo upholds white supremacy and how we actually see examples of that in High School Musical, is this idea of perfectionism. One thing she says is, my point was I feel like Troy's always expected to be perfect when his friends did very little in return. And we actually see this on both sides of the coins for Troy, right? Because in the status quo, he's expected to uphold the status quo in the perfect way, right? And so in the first movie, it's like, hey, you're not doing this right. And as we see the story continue, and especially in High School Musical 3 too, right, we see Sharpay be like, Troy is not taking musical theater seriously enough, right? Where she feels like, why should Troy bother to get in the game of musical theater if he's not going to choose it over basketball? And that's because perfectionism on either side of the board, right? Whether Troy was going to keep the status quo, whether he was going to break free of the status quo and, do the musical, right? This call to perfectionism is a characteristic of white supremacy. So in order to really deconstruct the status quo, expecting perfection, like Troy's friends are expecting from him, like Sharpay is expecting from him, to choose one side and stick to it, is actually how we carry out white supremacy. And even circling back to loyalty in the first movie, when Chad was calling upon this loyalty in kind of a bad way, right, in comparison to High School Musical 2, Sharpay is also trying to call upon this loyalty to Troy, to choose between either or. When in the reality of part of breaking free of the status quo and not upholding these systems of patriarchy and white supremacy and capitalism, right, is embracing that we can like many different things. Like Zeke, he likes basketball, but he also likes to bake. Martha is a brainiac, but she can also pop and lock. And this is really such a hidden gem in High School Musical. Like, the lessons High School Musical was fucking teaching. Like, I love High School Musical has always been iconic, but like rewatching these movies through the lens and like picking through how these storylines really enhance the points that we're trying to get across. Like, it's just so fucking good. It's like, they say you need to be teaching Hunger Games. Oh, we also need to be teaching High School Musical. And just to wrap it up, the biggest thing about High School Musical is breaking the status quo is not just a okay, we did it and we're done and over with. Like, it's the constant work, right? Like, we exist in a society that we are also trying to change, which is part of a quote from Mickey Kendall from Hood Feminism. Everyone should check that book out, right? So it would be silly to think that we've got it solved and it's never going to be a problem for us, right? Like, maybe for a point, his friends embraced that he liked singing, right? And that he would do that, right? But at the end of the day, there are still ways that we still keep ourselves within the status quo and keep our friends and the other people in the status quo that we need to weed out, right? It's the constant weeding out of the bad shit that we were taught. Breaking free of the status quo is constant work, but you need to get your head in the game because we got to work this out. I also think High School Musical 3, the song Scream, is actually a great emphasis on this point. Like, I have so many people telling me what I have to do, where I fit in, right? Well, what do I want to do, right? What do I really want for my life? And that's the brilliance of High School Musical. Everybody go stream Scream right now.